Okay, now, whoa, giant chat. Let's fix that. Here we are with the instructions on how to use the Joey Wright master kit. Okay, so this is something that I've been meaning to do for a while, so we're gonna knock that out in this video. And for those of you who are on this Twitch stream, for anyone who doesn't have it, you'll get a chance to see what's included in this kit. For the people that do own it, finally you will have a full-on explanation of everything that's in there. So let's get a little music going and jump into things. So just to quickly recap here, let's pop open what we're talking about. Okay, let's see here. And all right, so we're talking about the master kit that's on my website. The main thing that we're going to go over are the actions that are the Photoshop actions. There are presets, there are workspaces, there are custom brushes, there's a custom toolbar, all that stuff, as well as Lightroom, my default preset, and same thing for Capture One, which is basically like a very similar look. So whether you're using Lightroom or Capture One, it's basically the same thing. The idea is for those of you who use Lightroom, you've got my preset, which actually I apply to all my shoots before I send out proofs. And then for Capture One, I apply the Capture One style preset before I start just tweaking. Same thing, alien skin exposure. I've got different presets in there. Black and white and color, there's 5 of each. And then my Wacom settings, and there are some PDFs included in there. I'm not going to go into full detail on these things. They're pretty self-explanatory. So just look through the PDF folder if you have the master kit, and you'll see there is a little brief summary of my retouching process, my hair and makeup preferences that I send out to anytime I have a shoot, and especially when I have a new hair and makeup artist. I send that out to them. It's sort of just, here's what I want for hair, eyes, lips, all that stuff. A simple model release that you can use if you want to just sort of, make sure that you get a sign off on full usage of your images. I don't personally use it all the time. I use it when I think it's going to be something maybe for publication. And then in actions and presets, installation. So I'm not going to get into installation instructions. They are in that kit in the PDF folder. Okay, so and here, by the way, just to show you how it's sort of laid out, this is what the master kit looks like. It's got everything organized. Here are the PDFs. So there's the model release, the kit installation instructions, okay, my retouching summary, my hair and makeup preferences, all that stuff. Okay, in Photoshop, it's got everything in here. Again, I'm not going to go into installation instructions, but it's all there. Okay, so let's get into Photoshop. I'm gonna jump into my library. Let's find a good image that's been worked on in the past. I think I kind of already know one that I want to use. Let's go with this. Okay, I think this will be a good one. Let me just see if there's maybe a couple that are good. Okay. This will be good, and this will be good. So let's pull these 2 images up, and I'm gonna say make a PSD file and then open it up in Photoshop. And let's switch over to my Photoshop window. Let's get rid of this massive text chat. By the way, if you're watching this on Patreon or not live, we're on a live Twitch session doing this. That's why there's a current chat feed. So guys, I probably won't, if you have questions, please direct them toward what I'm doing, because I don't want to fill up this whole sort of little instructional video with random topics. So thank you for those of you who are already on here for, bearing with me. Okay, so let's first point out one thing, okay? So I've got my presets installed. By the way, you're going to see some stuff in mine that are not in the kit. It's because they're just little actions that I created for very specific jobs and things that are like once in a blue moon. Okay. So you see I have my project specific. So those are some of the things that you guys don't need. But the main actions are the Joey's actions folder. You'll see that gets installed in the non-destructive looks folder. Okay. So let's just go from the top down on those. The tool presets, I will give a little look into these. The only one that you guys don't have is this crop tool preset, which I use for a very specific job. So again, not necessary on your end. And then the other thing is this custom toolbar. This is included in that kit. Okay. So if you want, what I like is I just made this little custom toolbar that you can further customize. It's pretty simple. Just click the banana, edit toolbar, and then you can mess with that and add things. By the way, if you don't have the master kit, this is some stuff that just so you can know that you can do in Photoshop. So basically the idea is that I have my most sort of go-to tools all laid out there. Okay. Now, to be honest, I rarely jump over there. It's more or less that I'm working right out of my tool presets because they already include, like let's say we go to my darken clone stamp. It's a clone stamp that has certain sort of parameters applied to it up here. So it's just already ready to go. Okay. We'll get to that in a second. Another thing I want to point out is when you have this toolkit, one of the things people says, or one of the this doesn't, I don't get this all the time, but once in a while somebody say, hey, I installed your tool presets and or your actions and they're not, some of them aren't working. That means you didn't also install the tool presets, the keyboard shortcuts that I include, because some of these actions actually call on a specific tool preset to be selected. Some of them call on a specific shortcut, like my shortcut for flattening an image is Command-Alt-Shift-F. That's not a built into Photoshop shortcut. That's a shortcut that I made, and that's why I made sure to add it to the master kit so that you have that as well. And you can, you know, it'll be applied in some of these actions. So point of that, you got to install everything for the actions to work properly. Some of them will work without by just installing actions, but I can't guarantee they all will. In fact, I can guarantee that some will not. So make sure you do install everything before you try the actions and then message me and tell me that they did not work. So with that said, let's just go here. If you follow along with me sometimes, you'll know that my three sort of main steps, well, I should say, I really have 5 steps to an image. Color correction that I do in Capture One or Lightroom. Then I get into Photoshop. I do the blemish removal with my healing brush, okay? And I just always grab this healing brush here, or the spot healing brush, the darken clone stamp, lighten clone stamp, which, by the way, let's just do a quick little, since we're talking about that sort of first step of my Photoshop process. What's the difference? Spot healing brush, all you have to do is just, you know, mark over things, just to automatically Photoshop will take a guess to make the correction. So I find that this works great on very small blemishes. Like this might be too much. See, I don't think that did a great job. Now that's where I might jump to the healing brush, and then I might take a couple little swipes at it to fix something like that. Same thing here. Okay, so that's the short summary of the difference between spot healing and the regular healing brush. What are the darken and lighten clone stamps? Well, darken clone stamp is just a clone stamp set to darken mode, and that's great for things like this, filling in the hair where it's a little, or maybe to even darken some roots that are showing through, or even to fill in areas. So basically you have to sample a dark part of the photo, and then you can paint whatever it was is anywhere that's lighter than the sample area. Okay. So basically the idea is if you can just remember that it will darken things, but you do have to choose a sample area first. So like, let's say I wanted to maybe this little light area, I could sample here and then paint it in there. Okay. Light and clone stamp. It's going to do the opposite. It's great for kind of cleaning up little bikini lines, any shadows that you want to get rid of. So like here, I'm going to use it to just nicely get rid of that little neckline. It's good for like under the eyes, and it's really subtle, so it's not going to do major damage. You know, it just won't let you. Okay. Now here's another example. I could use that darken clone stamp and kind of come in here and just fill that. Okay, so just a couple little ideas there. You might use it for bikini lines, stuff like that. So I could take that light and clone stamp and just sort of brush that over. Okay, so just some sample ideas here. I want to lighten this dark shadow from that vein, and then maybe I want to use the darken clone stamp to sort of fill in the highlight that's coming through, and maybe even there as well. Okay, so that's a little quick summary there. Now, neutral clone stamp is simple. It's just a regular clone stamp set to 20% flow. So it won't, again, it's not going to do massive damage, but if maybe you're in a rush and you don't want to jump back and forth between light and darken, you can just sort of be careful with this and use it just like you would a regular clone stamp, okay? So I'm just using the neutral one. And then history brush 20%. Here's what I use this one for. If I say went way too far, I'm just gonna like really blast this area where this little shadow was with the light and clone stamp, okay? And then I might decide, oh man, I think I just went a little too far, got a little flat. Take your history brush from the tool presets and you can just sort of paint back a little bit of an earlier version of it, okay? So if you a good thing to do is sometimes maybe it's easier to let's say I want to get rid of a little crease or something, or how about this better example, those necklines got rid of. I mean, it's not completely necessary to remove them, so maybe it's easier to just remove them once and then just give it a couple little strokes to just bring it back a little bit with the history brush that's set to 20% flow. Okay, dodge and burn brush we'll get to in a second. Hue correction brush, here's what this one does. Let's just say that the model has, by the way, my tool presets are free if you just go on my website on the download page and just sign up for my mailing list. So these you can all get for free without purchasing the master kit. But we'll get to the actions in a second. Okay, so I'm just gonna say, oh, she had a pretty bad sunburn, okay? I just painted that right onto the layer. So there was no, I didn't protect that or anything. It wasn't on a separate layer. So here's where the hue correction brush comes in handy. You sample the good color of the skin, you paint over the skin that's off. If that doesn't quite do the trick or looks a little off or wasn't strong enough, I usually go from hue to color up in the blend mode for the brush and just give it a couple more strokes, and it'll usually add a little more color that you need there, okay? So that's the hue correction brush. My markup brush is simple. That's just a brush that I use. If I'm gonna send out something to a retoucher, what I would do is create a second layer. By the way, let me fix this so I can see what's going on here. Okay, better. So that's just to make notes on a photo, but I would always do that on a separate layer and, you know, say remove ear, which I would never do. Okay, so that's my markup brush. Masking brush, 100% opacity. This one is basically just a white brush. If I'm using a mask on something, this will help me just paint it back in. See, if I just painted this, it's just white. If on the other hand, let's just try to come up with something. Maybe I copy this or I duplicate this layer, I put it to multiply, and then if I add a black mask, I could fully paint back in that layer with the masking brush at 100%. I will probably get to some good example of where you might actually use that. Soft light. This one's simple. If you want to give a little like glow to your photo where there's light coming through, you just give it a couple little taps and it'll sort of just paint it back in. So see that? I'm just going to do that one more time. There, and then let's just go to the history and show you sort of before and after. Okay, so it's good. I would just only use this on like highlights that are within the photo already. Cyc wall cleanup. That's not for, that's something else. In fact, I don't know if that's part of the, that might be in the master kit. Let's just see here. Okay, I don't think it is. Okay. Sponge tool. Sponge tool is simple. It's basically a brush that gives you saturation or desaturation in a brush format. So if I thought, let's see, maybe I wanted to bring out the blue back here, I could just use that sponge tool to paint back in the blue color, or you know, see I'm bringing back in the green. You could also switch it up here in the mode to desaturate, and it'll do the opposite. Okay, so that's a little quick run through. Oh, sharpen tool. Skip that one. Okay, here's where I might use this. You see where I was doing a little work before with the clone stamp and it got a little soft? Take the sharpen tool. If you do something a little too heavy and it's too soft, just go ahead and just give it a few little strokes and you'll bring back the texture. Okay, so that's what the sharpen tool is there for. All right, so let's say I were to have finished my blemish removal. My first step from there is going to be my dodge and burn. So I was saying I have 5 steps kind of ultimately in a photo. Just to make it not as confusing and to look nice, I call those 1, 2, and 3. Those are the 3 action steps that I have in a photo. But the true first step is color correction, then blemish removal, then dodge and burn, liquefy, sharpen, grain, save. Okay, so we're going to cover these now. We'll get into the actions. All right, so here's what dodge and burn does. It goes ahead and gives you a couple new layers that are basically curves layers. And it also selects the dodge and burn brush. So that's why I didn't cover this, because now I will. Basically, I come in and I just paint over the areas that I want to add a little extra dodging, burning, a little highlight, you know. And then same thing with I click on the dark layer. Make sure you click on the mask, not the adjustment. And then you can go ahead and paint wherever you want to darken parts of the photo. So like maybe I want to darken under here and kind of make this little highlight a little more pronounced. Okay, so that's what that's for. Ultimately, I usually take this whole folder and I usually drop it down to about 50%, and then you can see what it did to the photo there. So let's go ahead and just flatten that and then jump to liquefy. If I hit that, all it does is just pull up your liquefy. You know, there's not really a ton of magic there, but what I like is that, and why add it to the actions when you can just jump up to the menu. Here's my reason, and especially for people that are just getting the hang of this. If you want to take the same steps that I do, then all you got to do is follow the numbers. Okay, so this at least lets you remember, don't do liquefy first. Do it after you've done this other stuff. You can sort of get these issues if you were to liquefy at the beginning of your retouching, and then later you want to maybe call on something like the history brush or you know, one of those things. You'll start to paint back in ghosting. Okay, so I would suggest just following this order, and I won't get into all the little reasons why. If you get my tutorial, that better explains all this stuff in much greater detail. But trust me on that one. And then lastly, I do this. It's a sharpen grain save. I go ahead. Now this actually calls on my grain action to happen, but you can't see what happens because it also used the flatten command. Okay, so it's back to 1 layer. All right, and here's what happens. Let's go to history for a second. And I'm going to show you where we were at right before. Where were we here? It was probably right about noise, new layer, okay, we were right at the liquefy. Okay. Okay, so that's where we were. And then here's, with this pulled up close on screen, you can see what this gave us. Okay, it's just a little grain in there. It sharpened things a little bit. And I also suggest that you sharpen at the end of your edit, not at the beginning, because you're just going to be giving yourself more stuff to take care of during that blemish removal segment. Okay, all right. Now from there is usually where I jump up to my alien skin. Now you have to own alien skin to use the presets, but basically here they are. They're my 5 color, and then I have my black and white. I must have accidentally deleted number 2, but the point here is not to show you what they are. You can go through and play with them yourself. I typically use number 3 in the color. So let's apply that. Okay. So here is what it looks like with number 3 applied. And here's the big use of this apply last filter. I'm gonna show you something in a second. Okay, so there it is. That's my alien skin preset. It's not a huge change. It kind of just gives the highlights one last little punch, gives you a little contrast. It sort of darkens the skin tones a little bit, desaturates them a little bit. It's a few little things that happen there. Okay, I just have found this little look that just seems to just kind of give that last little piece of the pie. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna remove this and show you how I really use this apply last filter. Let's say I have 10 photos tabbed up here, okay? And I've just finished all my steps on all of them except for that filter. I would go ahead and instead of just jumping to this photo and then saying apply last filter, I would actually go up to File. Now you guys are not gonna, hold on, let me fix this so you can see what I'm doing here. Hang tight for a second. I would go up to File, Automate, Batch, and this is where you can run an action on all of your files that are currently open. Maybe you could run it on all files in a folder, so they don't even have to be open to run automated batch actions. So in this case, I'm gonna say apply last filter to all opened files, okay? And I'm gonna hit okay. By the way, all of my actions that I give you, they're going to show up in here, okay? And they're going to be in little sort of sections. So you're going to get the non-destructive looks. You're going to, so the ones that are included will be displayed in this batch window, okay? So I'm going to go to apply last filter. I'm going to hit okay. Now, I want to remind you that I did remove that layer first, and there's a reason on the one photo that I did it to. Because now it's going to go through and apply that alien skin filter on all of the open tabs, but it's depending on the fact that there's only one layer present in order for this action to work properly. So if you ran it again on the one you already did the alien skin preset on that now had a second layer, it's going to kind of mess with the action. So you see, I'm not doing anything. It's just going through my tabs and it's applying the last filter. And I really just use this for, going through and applying my filter to all of the open files. So let me, while that's running, let me open up get my windows back on there. And that's usually when I walk away, go grab a water or something and let it just run through, because it takes a minute. It's a pretty intense process. So, okay. So that's the apply last filter action, all right? What else here? Now, usually I'll go through my photos and just decide, do I want to add more of that look, less of that look? I'll mess with the opacity. I usually go at about 50%, and then I'll just flatten it, and then I'll save it, and then I'll close the image. Okay. So let's get rid of, oops, let's get rid of that alien skin filter because I'm going to use this photo for some other demos. Okay. Halo fix is kind of simple. Now, your halo fix is going to be a little different than mine because I've just played with some adjustments, but I'm going to get to the one that's included in the kit here. And here's what it does. It basically gives you this. So if you were to work on a photo that had a sky or something where there was sort of a halo being created, I just go ahead and click the sky. Maybe it would be best, I'll tell you what, let's just open up a photo where we can really demonstrate this because I feel like that would be the right move here. Perfect. Wait, no. We'll find a better one. Hold on. Hang tight. Okay, here's a good example photo. Let's go ahead and open this. Okay, so here, I'm gonna run the halo fix on this photo. Okay, so it'll pop up this color range window. You just take the little sample tool, and usually you get these halos in the skies. So I click on where I know the sky is in the photo, and you can see now it's starting to create a mask that's gonna be in the sky. I'll hold my shift key so I can add to it, and I'll just kind of click around and get more of the blue, maybe the water, and that pretty much selects all the blues perfectly for me. I hit OK. And now, okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. This is what the halo tool will look like for you, okay? So now, here's where we're at. By the way, just to better see the halo that probably occurs, is like you can kind of see it a little bit. It's usually on the edge where like the skin meets the water, wherever there's like high contrast. So the idea is it sets you up with it's gonna give you the darken clone stamp, and you'll just essentially just go right, sample just off of the edge where there is no halo, and you'll kind of just paint right up to the edge, and it'll give you the same nice little dark edge as the sky around it. So a good example would be if this was an accurate halo, you can see how that's gonna give me, you know, let's even go in more. Let's pretend this was like a really bad halo for a second. Let's go full screen so I can. So let's just say this was a bad halo. I would sample here and then just kind of paint. Again, it's using that darken. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't do a good enough job of picking the, here, let's fix this. See the mask there? It's not a perfect mask. By the way, if you ever want to fix a mask, here's a quick tip for you. Take a white brush. So I'm just going to grab my masking brush, 100% opacity, and I'm going to switch it to overlay blend mode. And it'll do a really good job without me being careful of it'll just sort of get rid of the gray stuff and not the true black. Okay, and I didn't have to do anything crazy. Okay, so now let's go back to where we were with the darken clone stamp. Oops. Make sure I click back on, not on the mask, but on the layer itself. And now I'm just going right up to the edge with it. And the mask is already there. So, you see how that works? Okay, so basically the idea is, oops, I did a little ghosting there. Let's fix that one more time. When you get some kind of halo effect, you just make sure you get a nice mask from that color selector. And then, you know, it's like this. You see how I can't hit the skin because it created that nice mask? So that's the idea, is you use that halo tool to sort of create a nice mask when you have these contrasting scenes with like a sky and then the model, and you got to fix that look. So let's get rid of this. Okay, let's move on. Add a before layer. Here's what I like about this. When I hit this, because I work a lot on one layer, so I'm always flattening down, okay? When I use this action, it's just gonna do something really simple. It's just gonna go ahead and give me my original layer before and after. Now, of course, it's not doing much here, but let's do it on this one. What in the world? Hold on a second. Let's cancel that. That was weird. Oh, I know what I did here. I changed my history state. Okay. From earlier when I messed with the history state, I kind of messed with that action. All right. So this is what would happen. You can excuse that little mess up. But anyways, I hit this. Boom. It adds a new layer on top that's just the original photo. Just if I wanted to take a quick glance of where I'm at with my fixes. Okay. I just sort of hide it and reveal it, and then I just dump it when I'm done. Okay. That's also good if you just realize that you just botched something. You can add that layer back in, hold Alt, click on the mask, which will make a black mask. When you hold Alt, it creates a black mask instead of a white one. And then I could just take like this 100% masking brush, and I could just paint back in the part of the photo that I want to go back to square one. Instead of the whole, the whole thing. So that's what I use the 100% masking brush for. Is anytime I have a black mask on a photo and I want to just paint back in white, I just click here and it's already set to white, perfect white, everything's good to go. Okay. Dibs asks, is that halo similar to chromatic aberration? Not exactly. No, it's two different things, and I would suggest trying to fix that with the tools that are built into Capture One or Lightroom. But you could, I would not use the halo fix action for that. All right, teeth whitening. This one's simple. It's just gonna basically add a little layer. It's gonna give you a little brush already in hand. I didn't have to select the brush, and it's actually that masking brush, 100% opacity. Again, this is why you need to, and you just paint over the teeth. And actually, it doesn't do a lot of harm if I just go a little bit over the lips, but I'm gonna try to avoid them. And that will just whiten the teeth up a little bit. Now, she didn't need it, but I'm showing you, and this was a good example. If the teeth were a little yellow, it would have done a really good job. In fact, let's just pretend for a second that she had a little bit of like stained yellowish teeth. I'm just gonna like, oops. I'm gonna do it with color. Okay, so she had a little cheese whiz for breakfast. So again, here's what I would do is, and the reality is all her teeth would be kind of fucked up. So, okay, so let's go ahead and try that brush out. That's right on the layer. I don't know how great this is, but that did a pretty damn good job. So if her teeth were yellow to begin with, this would do a really good fix of bringing it back to white. Okay, so that's the teeth whitening action. Let's get rid of that. Oops. And let's go back to a point before I did all that disgusting stuff. Oh, okay, hold on a second. How far back did I do that? Oh, it was way back here. Sorry. Okay, I'm just going back for a second. Okay, there we go. That's where we're at. All right. Okay, so that was the teeth whitening. Eye whitening. This is another one. If somebody's eyes, she's got nice eyes, so there's no problem here. But I can play that. It's going to grab me the right. This actually gives me my dodge and burn brush. But so it's subtle, and then you just go in and you just paint in a little bit where you want to just brighten the eyes. Again, don't go crazy with it. If I went 100%, and this is why I don't give you a 100% brush, it's gonna look, even if I did that carefully, it's gonna look super fucking fake. So don't do that. Okay, so she didn't really need that, so I'm gonna get rid of that layer. All right, that's the eye whitening. Iris pop. This one's simple. Click that, it gives you a nice little layer. You go in and you just paint the iris. In this case, not a good look for her. This is good for probably photos that have a little better lighting. This is shot in a really dull area. So let's actually try this on the other photo for a second and see how it does. It just gives it a little pop. You just paint it right on the iris. It's subtle. It just gives it, let's see, a little before and after. So play with that. That one, I would say, experiment with. You can change the opacity if you think it's too strong. Okay, remove shadows. Let's hit this one. So this is another one where it builds up a new layer for you. If you had an issue where there were some shadows that you just didn't like on the photo, I mean, I'll just show you with her hair, but you can see it'll sort of let you paint shadows away. I would not do that on somebody's hair. But if there were sort of shadows in the background that you wanted to lighten up, and just do it really sort of specifically, you know, without affecting the whole photo, that one's pretty self-explanatory. So let's get rid of that. And let's just see if there's anything here. We could try it on this, and maybe even see that. So there's ways, I would say, again, this is another one to play with. Just go by the name of it. You think there's a shadow that's too much, it's in a little certain spot. It's a good way to just reduce it a little bit. Okay, clothing wrinkles. That's one of the reasons I pulled up this photo. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. This one has a little bit of an intense process that's going on. It's using a surface blur, it's creating a new layer. I'm gonna let it run, give it a second. And let me see if there are any Shooter says, my mouth is fully dropped right now. Haha, I need to buy this kit ASAP. It's I think it's a fair value. This is years of my creating actions and presets, and just, I mean, to be honest, I have these little tweaks that I've done from here and there from the time that I put this out that are really more specific to certain projects that I had an issue with and I needed to do something very specific. Generally speaking, these are safe for a long time. Like, they will work, and they should work on most versions of Photoshop. I can't promise you that if you're working on some prehistoric version of Photoshop that they will all work properly, but most of the actions rely on tools and things that have existed for a long time, so it shouldn't be a huge issue. So again, this one is a little bit of a process, and I actually used this recently on a job where it was for the Hard Rock, and it was all these shirt photos, and they were just all wrinkled out, and I really needed to fix them. And the photos also had logos on them, so I didn't want to mess with the logo, okay? And I was able to pretty much just draw right over the photos, and you wouldn't be able to tell that I ran an action on it. In fact, in a second, I could pull up, how about while this is cooking, let's just do this. Let's open a recent. This is the shoot that I had to use them on, okay? And this was a job I did for the Hard Rock, and we'll just pull up one of the photos as an example. Okay, selects folder. Here, we'll do, this is my buddy P. He came in and assisted me on this shoot, and this was just a lighting test, okay? But let's say I wanted to get rid of some of these wrinkles on his shirt. This is what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna open this into Photoshop. P, also known as Art Crazy Photog. And then we'll give two examples of how to use this. And this is a little action that took a little bit of like clever thinking on how to use existing Photoshop tools to create something that will quickly, so I had to go through 40 photos and get rid of wrinkles on the shirts. If I was doing this manually with a clone stamp, it would have taken me 2 days. So I'm gonna run this one more time. I know it's slow, but I can talk us through this. So yeah, imagine I had 40 shirt photos like this that needed the wrinkles removed, okay? That would be a pain in the ass. So you're gonna see how this sort of takes care of it in a very simple action. Now, in the case of the batch of photos I was working on, I would just run this the same way I did that automated action with the apply last filter. I would go up to File, Automate, Batch, and then apply the clothing wrinkles action on all the open files, okay? And you're gonna see it's gonna give me this new layer that all I have to do is just paint over the wrinkles, and it's gonna like magically make them disappear. So I see Pamela's on here on the chat. Pamela, have you ever used this? You own the kit. Have you used it, or anybody on the chat? Have you tried this one at all or experimented with it? I'd be curious to know. While this is going, give it another 30 seconds and we should be good. I try to make these actions as sort of self-explanatory as possible, but with that said, you know, I know some of them still maybe leave a little question mark over them. So you have used it. Great. Okay, so it wasn't totally a total mystery. That's good. Good to hear. Now, it's actually also in this action, it's going to call on my film grain action, and you're going to see why in a second. Because one of the problems is if you really start digging in with a clone stamp or something, you're going to probably start losing the texture. So if you used a healing brush, you'd keep the texture, but it gets really tricky to try to remove those big wrinkles with the healing brush. And I promise this one will be worth the wait to see. And again, if you're running this on multiple photos, go. This is your time to take a break. Okay, so this one's almost done. All right, here we go. So all I have to do is it gives me the right brush, okay, which is, it should be the 100% opacity brush. And all I have to do is just sort of paint over, and you can even see it kind of gets rid of lint and all this shit. And I just paint over it. But look at, the nice part is the texture is still there because it's including my film grain in the effect. I mean, it's not perfect as I get to the edges, but if I wanted to, I could always come in here, maybe take my hue correction brush and then fix the weird little things it's doing. But anyways, going back to this, going back to 100% opacity, I just literally just brush over this in like 2 seconds and it's good to go. Now that's a little extreme. If I wanted to sort of reduce the layer to like a different opacity to just kind of get rid of them a little bit, but I'm just going full in to show you guys. You know, it will work on the sleeves here. And again, it's gonna keep the texture, but you gotta be careful when you're working on edges. Like the photos that I shot on a white backdrop don't have an issue. Now, it's not exactly gonna work on things that have a lot of texture. So this is more for flat colors, but let's jump back to this photo for a second. And you can see it does a really nice job of holding the texture. And I'm painting right now, it's got a nice threshold built into it. So it doesn't mess with too much detail, okay? But you gotta be careful. I say don't go crazy with this because you see how it looks kind of flat. You know, it's not, you shouldn't go nuts with it. In fact, I'm gonna do something real quick here. I'm gonna just redo that layer and just paint it like where I think it might need it, right? So if it's just like here, I'm just gonna kind of brush it in there and then fix some of that, okay? Same thing here. Okay, so the idea is it will paint away the wrinkles, but it won't, see how it does not affect the edges, like you know, I can sort of go right up to the edge, and as long as I don't cross into it, it's fine. Okay, so now should you use it on skin? I suggest not, okay? But anyways, so that's the clothing wrinkle action that I created. Unsharp mask is simple. This is really just the sharpening that gets applied. Let me get rid of this, hold on. This is the sharpening that gets applied in that number 3 action, sharpen, grain, save, okay? But it calls on this action, and then it also calls on, but if you just want to add sharpening, you can just come up here and you'll see, boom, it gives a nice little sharpening. And then film grain, I'm gonna go ahead and play that one. And there, it gives you this nice, and this film grain is a old school method from long time ago, but look at how much shit is involved in making that work. It's a lot of stuff. But it gives me, I think, a nicer film grain effect than I get out of, and by the way, it does put it on a separate layer, so you can always play with the opacity. Okay. But that, I like this better than some of the film grain that gets put into, you know, that's built into Lightroom and Capture One. And I would suggest doing it at the end and keeping it on a separate layer if you want to be safe. All right, here's a simple one, vertical stretch. If your model is a little shorter or vertically challenged, let's do it to P. Not saying he is, but let's just use it on him. I'm gonna get rid of this t-shirt layer, and I'm gonna hit vertical stretch. And all it does is just give them a little stretch, a little tug vertically, okay? So I'm gonna undo that, but that's what it did. So let's, oops. Oh, I didn't undo there, okay, that's it. So now this has to work on a layer that's locked, a background layer. So I'm gonna hit it again, and boom. Okay. So that's something you could do. I would suggest maybe toward the end of a photo, or like when you're near the liquefy stage. All right, liquefy, fade, revert. Okay, this one is probably not very self-explanatory. So let's do this. Let's just say, and I haven't used this in a while, so I hope I show this correctly. Let's say I did something with liquefy that I later thought was like way over the top. Okay, and I went too far. Sorry, P, I'm going cone head on you. Okay, all right, so let's hit okay on that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and play this liquefy fade. So it's gonna tell you what to do. When liquefy dialog pops up again, choose reconstruct, then choose the percentage amount and hit continue. Okay, so I'm gonna hit reconstruct. And oh man, what is, okay, this is doing something funky, and I think it's because hold on, I've got to figure out what, let's try it on one of these other photos. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a liquefy. So let's say I did liquefy at one point, and let's say I just didn't like what I did to it. Okay, so I'm gonna hit okay. Okay, continue. I hope this works, otherwise I look like an idiot. All right, I'm gonna hit reconstruct. Where is this pulling this? That's very bizarre. Okay, I am not sure what this one's doing at the moment. I might have to go back and work on this one. But basically, the idea is that it should, let's just really try to, I think I know what's going on here. Yeah, okay. It's because I was doing some funky stuff with the select previous history state. Let's just so I can see what this is. Okay, select previous history state. Yep. Give the message and then liquefy. All right. Let's try this one more time. Okay. I'm going to liquefy one more time. Let's go to filter, liquefy. By the way, when you install my custom workspace, I'll talk about that in 1 second. So let's just say I did something weird. That's supposed to be the idea here, right? Okay, so now in my history, you can see liquefy is, and this is meant to work right after you do a liquefy. That's so bizarre that it's doing that. And I think this is something that I did to a different photo. Pamela, have you used this one? Jeez. Okay, action fail on this one. But the idea is that you can reconstruct a certain percentage of what you just did. And it's really bizarre that it's doing that. Let's do this. I think I have an idea. I'm not sure why it's going to that one. Anyways, okay, I might have to do an update on this one. All right, moving on. We'll readdress that later. Okay, high pass, local sharpening. All right. This one is for if you need to sharpen a very specific area of the photo. It gives you a layer. So this is where I'd use it, maybe, is like on the eyes, mouth, nose, hair, if you really want to get super detailed. So look, I'm going to turn that off and on, and it's subtle. Watch the eyes, the hair, look like right here. Okay, so it basically gives you sort of an adjustment layer to work on sharpening, okay? And it'll also select that 100% white masking brush, okay? So again, another example of why these need to work together. You need to have both installed for all the actions to work properly. All right, save is simple. It's just save the photo, but the reason that's there is because some of the other actions call on that, okay? So like the sharpen grain save needs this save action to work, okay? So these at the end are actually a little bit, they're just thrown in there so some of the other actions work properly. Save all is a good one. You can just hit play and it'll save all of the, I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. And it's gonna basically, what really you should do is click on save and hit OK, and it's gonna go ahead and save all the open files. But let's cancel that because there's layers and it's taken a while. Okay. Anyways, the idea is that just sort of puts you right into a batch process for saving. Okay. So that way, if you have a bunch of files open up and it's like you got to walk away and save it, just click that save all, and that'll help you do that faster. All right, let's flatten is simple. That's just to flatten down layers. So boom, there it is. And again, that's more for helping out with some of the other actions that are in there. Okay. All right, let's go to these non-destructive looks. So let's do this first one, contrast crush. Okay, so this is really just to sort of kill the, if you have a photo that's looking a little too contrasty, you see how it sort of faded the blacks a little bit? Okay, and what you can do is come in here and click on these layers. Like if you want to intensify it, open this up, go down to the contrast overlay layer, and you can play with that opacity and it'll sort of give you different effects. But the idea is really for if you like that sort of crushed black look and you didn't get it when you were, let me play it one more time and watch the photo. Boom. It's just you see it in the shadows mostly. Okay, so that's just a quick little snap to that look. Let's see if we did it to this one. Okay, I'm going to turn it off and then on. All right, it just gives you a little bit of softer blacks in the photo. All right, warm, cool, crush. Let's try that on this and see how it looks. So it's sort of like a split toning effect that I created. Okay, So it sort of cools off the shadows. I think it warms the highlights a little bit, but it just gives you this almost like vintagey effect. Okay. So let's get rid of that one. Let's just see how it looks on this photo. Okay, so it's just a little subtle effect. I'm not big on things that look like full-blown like Instagram filters, but that'll cool off the shadows a little bit for you. Strip the reds. Okay, so I notice that sometimes some of my photos out of the Nikon look a little too red. This will just sort of take some of the reds out of the photo if you have something similar. So you can play with that and maybe find a good opacity. And by the way, if you ever want to change one of these effects, and maybe you're like, oh no, I like what his reds do, but only if it was like halfway applied at 50%. You could always come down to the last part of the action, select here, and let's say that's what you want to do is instead of give this to you at 100%, you can just record and then do whatever the fix is that you want to add to the action. So I'm going to say make it 50%. And then I'm going to hit stop. And now the next time I hit this, it's going to add that step in there. And you see how now the opacity is at 50. I'm going to get rid of that in here. I'm just going to delete that little part of the action. But just to show you that you can easily customize actions. You can also, by the way, you can uncheck parts of the action if you want to kind of skip them. Okay. Grimes effect. Let's run this one and see how it does. This was based on photographer Joel Grimes. He had this very like contrasty look that he would do to his photos, and I thought it was a cool look. I gotta be honest. I don't remember the last time I used this effect, but there's a lot of steps in it, and so I even put a note in here. The initial effect is very strong. Please adjust the opacity of the layer group for desired effect. Okay, so this is like his look on steroids. And the idea is you just find where you want to go opacity-wise to get the right amount of contrast. But it's a very punchy effect, okay? So I would say, you know what this would be great for? I'll tell you exactly. Photos of guys, like athletes and stuff. Joel Grimes does a lot of... he shoots a lot of athletes and ads and stuff. I'll even pull up in a second while this is loading. I'm gonna pull up Joel Grimes, and you kind of get an idea. Here's Joel Grimes' work. Okay. No, don't subscribe. Okay, let me just. All right. So let's go back to where did that window go? And in fact, let's go back one step. I think I clipped. Oh, wait, is that it? So you can see he's got this really contrasty look. Again, this is like off the bat overkill. The idea is that you're supposed to sort of play with it and take it where you want it. So let's say at like almost 50%. It's a cool look on if you want that kind of edgy, contrasty, almost gritty look. It gets the job done. So like I'd almost see this used for like a UFC poster or something like that. Okay. So that's that one. Last one is vintage effect. Let's apply it here. By the way, maybe let me just see something so I know what's in here. Photoshop, actions, non-destructive look, censorship. I do include this censorship action, so I will cover that in a second. All right, I'm glad I checked because I forgot that that was a part of the master kit. So here's the vintage effect. Let me hide and show that. Okay, so it just gives a little light look. Let's try it on this photo. It's play with it again. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's sort of like a low contrast, sort of faded look. So that one's in there. And here's the last folder that's included. Censor with brush. So let's just say, let's get rid of this. you had something showing on a photo, you just click that. It gives you a new little layer. It says censor. It gives you a brush. And I want to just, you know, censor out the godforsaken eyeballs. But this is the one that I actually like. You'll see that in some of my photos, the little scribble. Well, that's how I do it, with just that action. Here's the other option, the mosaic censor that I created. All right, so this brings up this dialog box. You figure out how much of a mosaic you want to kind of hide whatever it is you're trying to hide. You hit OK, and now it gives you the brush, and you just paint in over whatever it is that you're trying not to show. Like, God hates belly buttons, so get rid of that. Okay. It's amazing all things God created and hates also. Okay, so there's the censorship mosaic censor action. All right. So those are all my actions. Let me see if there's anything I missed. I do want to just touch on a couple more things. By the way, the workspace. When you install the workspace, you're going to get Joey's full screen workspace and Joey's workspace, not these Twitch ones. Those are for what I'm doing now. But they look very similar to this. It's the same layout. It's just all the stuff I use. Actions, history, the tool presets. It just sort of lays out your Photoshop screen to look like this. What it'll also do is it will include my highlighted menu options. Do you see how I've got little red highlights on some of these go-to things that I use in my process? Those will get highlighted when you install my workspace. Okay. Let's get out of Photoshop. No, we don't need to save any of these. Don't save it and don't save it. Okay. Let's see here. Hold on one second. I have somebody trying to get in my door. It's probably Chris. Hey, you come in during my Twitch thing, but I'm doing a lesson on something very specific, so you can hang out in the background and watch, but Chris is here, but I'm going to continue these last parts of this. Let's go to Capture One. And all right. So let's just say we were, if you install my Capture One presets, let me fix this screen here. Oops, and let's get rid of chat for a second. Okay. This is going to be included. It'll go under user styles, the Joey default Capture One preset. Now, let's go back to my default session and let's pop open. Let's create a copy of this one that I've already worked on. Let's just say new variant. Okay, so that's the original photo. Here's the default preset. So you can see that's the difference. All right, so I'm gonna uncheck that. That's the original photo, default preset. I have the same, it's the same name. It's called Joey's default Lightroom preset that you can install for Lightroom. So if you're a Lightroom user versus Capture One, you have a very similar preset for that. Okay, and then also I want to show you the export presets that are included, which are going to be this. It should be web, print, and Instagram to desktop. So basically, here's the whole point of these. Let me get rid of this photo, and I'm gonna work on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and hit process. The equivalent in Lightroom would be export presets. So it's gonna be the same three things. It's basically the same exact thing in Lightroom. You just hit process here, and these are gonna dump out 3 folders to my desktop. Oops, there it is, okay. And it names it and everything. So this is what I give to my clients at the end. When I'm done with photos, I give them a high-res print version. I give them an Instagram version. This is like sized properly for Instagram, and then Facebook and web, okay? And because the folders get named accordingly, it's very hard for them to screw up and use the wrong, they won't use the photo in the Instagram folder when they're using it to print something. They'll get it by seeing the names. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't get a lot of phone calls asking me to re-explain. And I think I've covered pretty much everything. I'm looking in the included folder to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I covered the actions. I covered the brushes, by the way. You'll see there are brushes to install. You don't actually grab those and use those. Those are sort of used to help I think a couple of the tool presets work properly. Or actually, I take that back. I think it's let's put it this way: you just install them, but you're not going to be searching for them. They work within some of the other actions and tool presets. Keyboard shortcuts, like I said, it's really just my flatten command and a couple other little things that work in some actions, so you don't need to really know exactly what's in there. Menu customization folder. By the way, while we're doing this, let's just so you can see what I'm looking at. Toolbar, again, that's the toolbar that I have on my Photoshop workspace I just talked to you about. And that's pretty much it. And you can see Lightroom has my one default preset and those three same, just like I used in Capture One. It's got the Instagram, the desktop, print, and web. So that is it for the Master Kit explanation video. I hope some of you have found that useful. Some of those who already own the Master Kit. Any questions about that while I have you guys on here? Because I'm actually going to log out in a sec. Chris, you want to say hello?
Hey guys.
Like in the... Oh, you're on it. I didn't see that you're over there.
Hey guys, it's Tank Top Tuesday.
It is Tank Top Tuesday.
That's why I showed up.
Wait, is it Tank Top Tuesday or Titty Tuesday?
I don't know. I'm thinking
okay.
Tank Top Tuesday.
Yeah, Tank Top Tuesday. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Ella. Cover your eyes.
She's got 8 nipples.
Okay. Lens Effect, what's up? So I don't want to keep this video running too long because this is going to get sent as a link from now on to the purchasers of the Master Kit. And Pamela says the install was super simple even for me. That's good to hear. And it looks like yeah, I think this was long overdue, much needed explanation of what's in there. So I hope you all found that useful. And by the way, I'll have to mess with that what was it, the liquefy revert action, which the idea is it's supposed to, if you liquefy too far, you're supposed to be able to use that to sort of adjust, like sort of percentage wise what you just did. Okay. Oh, Mr. Push just joined.
Oh, what up, Push Life?
Yeah. So, well, folks, it's 11:45. I said I was going to try to stay until about 11:30. I'm not going to go on hours and hours this time. But I'm glad we got to cover that first segment before the Master Kit explanation. And then go through all that stuff, which I've been meaning to do. And that was Mr. Christian Fleury's idea, so I owe him a thank you for telling me, hey, you should go on Twitch and do that, tell everybody how to use the actions that are in there. So anyways, if you guys don't have any questions, I am going to say peace and Push. Thanks for saying hello. And Mystic Mindplay, what's up? Shooter, you're welcome. So yeah, cool. Charlie, glad you found this useful.
Shooter, thanks for telling me it's Monday.
Oh, it is Monday.
You didn't
Damn
know
it. No, it will be Tuesday in 20 minutes. So
that's what I said.
Does Chris do Twitch? They want to know?
Yeah, Chris twitches, but I only call. That's it.
He only does calling on there. So
boring.
You use it for, do you do it late at night to put people to sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does it. tune in when you're feeling restless. So, a rare productive session. So true. Man, I haven't been this productive on Twitch in a long time. Cool. JD, no, I did not, man. I'm sorry. I was wrapped up with that event over the weekend, and I'm gonna get some time in these next couple days to like chill. So I will for sure do that. I read like the first half of it, and I didn't want to reply to you until I got through the whole thing. So cool. All right. Well, listen. Good night, everybody. I hope you enjoyed both parts of that, the full explanation, and we'll do it again soon. I'm gonna update the Twitch schedule in the next 24 hours. I'll have an update on there. So cool. And remember, if you don't already know, that my Patreon is where you can find all of my past archived Twitch sessions, including everything we did tonight. Will be on there in 24 hours. That's the thing I do as soon as I sign off here is get that scheduled and loaded up. So cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks again. Appreciate it. And I will catch you guys hopefully next week. Later.